I never imagined love could become this complicated, or that it could shatter a family in ways silence never could. My story isn't simple, and it isn't easy to tell, but it's true. It's about how the person I trusted most, my partner, and the woman who became my new mother, fell in love. When my father remarried, I was already an adult. I was living on my own, finally building a life where I could be honest about who I loved. My stepmother, Elena, entered our lives with a quiet grace. She had warm smiles, chose her words carefully, and possessed a calm strength that made our home feel steadier than it had in years. I genuinely respected her. I even admired her. The last thing I ever expected was for her heart to collide with mine in the most devastating way possible. My partner, Maya, had been my world for 3 years. We met in college, and our love story was built on late-night talks, shared playlists, and the constant, conscious choice to be together, again and again. Maya was gentle, expressive, and deeply empathetic. She had this incredible ability to make people feel safe enough to open up around her. So, when my father invited us for a long summer visit, I was excited. I saw it as a chance for everyone to finally bond, for us to feel like a real, complete family at last. I had no idea that summer would tear us apart. At first, everything felt completely innocent. Elena and Maya would spend hours together in the kitchen, trading recipes and filling the house with laughter. They started taking walks through the garden in the evenings while I was finishing up work. They'd talk about art, books, and the quiet bravery it takes to start your life over. I noticed their growing closeness, of course, but I trusted both of them completely. What is love, after all, if it isn't built on a foundation of trust? I brushed off my concerns, telling myself I was happy they were getting along so well. But then, the shift began. It was subtle, almost imperceptible at first. A lingering glance across the dinner table. A shared smile that lasted just a moment too long. Little things that you could easily explain away. One evening, I walked into the living room and found them sitting close on the couch. Their knees were touching, and the air between them felt heavy, charged with an emotion I couldn't name. The moment they saw me, they jumped apart. Both of them were flushed, and an awkward silence fell over the room. My chest tightened with a sudden, sharp anxiety, but I pushed it down. I told myself I was being paranoid, just imagining things. I desperately wanted to be wrong. I wasn't. The truth revealed itself on a rainy afternoon. I came home from an errand earlier than expected and heard voices coming from the sunroom. They were soft, trembling, and painfully honest. It was Elena. She was crying, confessing to Maya how she hadn't felt truly seen or alive in years, how her marriage to my father felt safe but hollow. Maya listened, her own voice calm but unsteady, as she admitted she was feeling something she didn't understand and, more importantly, didn't want to feel. My feet felt like lead. I stood frozen outside the door, listening to my world fall apart. When I finally found the strength to step inside, the room went completely silent. The only sound was the rain against the glass and the frantic pounding of 3 hearts. 3 lives, hanging in the balance, forever changed by a single, devastating moment of honesty. Elena spoke first. Through a flood of tears, she apologized. She swore she never intended for her feelings to grow, that this love had blindsided her at the worst possible time in the worst possible way. Maya immediately reached for my hand, her eyes swimming with guilt and fear. She kept repeating my name, telling me she loved me, only me, and that whatever she felt for Elena just confused and scared her. Her raw honesty was a blade to the heart. It hurt more than any lie ever could have. For days, I was adrift in a sea of conflicting emotions. I didn't know what to feel. The sting of betrayal was tangled up with a strange, unwelcome compassion. Blinding anger wrestled with a painful need to understand. I looked at Elena and saw not just the woman who had betrayed my trust, but a person who had denied her own desires for so long that they had finally erupted. I looked at Maya, my Maya, and saw her struggling with powerful emotions she hadn't asked for and didn't want. And then there was me, caught in the wreckage between a love I couldn't imagine losing and a loss I couldn't comprehend. Time seemed to slow down. The following days were filled with endless conversations. We talked until our voices were hoarse, sometimes calmly, sometimes through racking sobs. There was no easy path forward. Boundaries had to be drawn. Painful, necessary distance had to be created. Maya moved out for a while. We decided to take space, to see if the love we had built could possibly survive such a deep fracture. Elena withdrew into herself, respecting my need for space, quietly carrying the weight of her own shame. The silence in the house was deafening. A few weeks later, Maya and I met by the ocean. It was the same spot where we used to sit and dream about our future together. The sea air was cold, but her hand in mine was warm. She looked at me, her gaze steady, and told me that she chose me. She said that real love isn't just about a spark or a fleeting feeling, it's about commitment. It's about the promise you make to show up, even when it's hard. She kissed me softly, and it felt less like a plea for forgiveness and more like a promise for the future. I chose to believe her, not because it was easy, but because I knew our love was a risk worth taking. Eventually, Elena and I spoke too. It was a difficult, fragile conversation. She apologized again, but this time it wasn't as a stepmother to a stepdaughter. It was as one woman to another, acknowledging she had crossed an emotional line and caused immeasurable pain. Forgiveness didn't come in an instant. It arrived slowly, piece by piece, built on a new foundation of brutal honesty. We agreed that love can be messy, unpredictable, and even destructive, but that respect must always, always come first. Our family was irrevocably changed, but it wasn't destroyed. The love didn't just vanish, it evolved. It transformed into something more complex, more fragile, but perhaps more real. Through all the pain, I learned that even the strongest hearts can stumble. I learned that truth can hurt and heal you all at once. And I learned that choosing love sometimes means choosing to have the most difficult conversations instead of hiding in easy silence. In the end, there were no winners and no losers in this story. There was no simple victory or defeat. We simply learned what love can cost, and why, despite everything, it's still worth it all. Thank you for listening. If you found something to connect with in my story, please consider subscribing for more.